I think I got everything there. What's up, everybody? It is IBS Yeezus or IBN Yeezus. I gotta work on that rebranding. With me is Joe the Brain Matz, which I don't know why he won't put that as his Twitter handle. I think he just doesn't want to give me credit. But we are back. Last week we didn't do a Sunday show because I had to work, which obviously you guys will see that throughout the year. I work like once every like month on a weekend, but we're going to do the AFC and NFC North divisions today, and then I'll discuss with him after the show. We'll try to get back together on Sunday and run through another division as well. So we will start with the AFC, and then just a quick overview of what to expect this year as far as strength of schedule, which some people take a lot of stock into that. And then we'll just go by each team. Obviously, the better teams we'll spend more time with. But if there's something interesting, we will definitely try to discuss it. And the AFC North will be one of those divisions, I think, that we'll probably have a little bit of debate on who we expect to win it. So without further ado, we'll get into it. AFC North, Bengals finished first last year. Followed by the Steelers, Browns, then the Baltimore Ravens, who were just devastated by injury. If you look at their strength of schedule this year, the Bengals' strength of schedule overall is 53% of the teams that they play. They won 53% of their games. Steelers come in second with 51. Browns are at 49, and then believe it or not, the Ravens have the weakest strength of schedule this year, which is interesting. I think
it's that last place schedule. I mean, that's the beauty of when you finish last place, especially now with the 17th game. They get to play 3 last place teams that the rest of their division does not get to see. So that's why there's that big gap between them and the rest.
You think they did that intentional?
What, the Ravens?
Yeah.
I mean, if you have the opposite vibe on going for 2 as Harbaugh and I do, then you could argue that maybe he was purposely blowing those games at the end. But
the Ravens, to say they were devastated by injury last year would be an understatement.
Yeah.
At one point, they had 25 players on injured reserve. That's offense and defense on injured reserve. I don't think at any point last year in the season they had their starting offensive line all together, unless it was maybe the first couple games. To add insult to injury, no pun intended, they ended up losing Lamar Jackson at some point in the season as well. Nobody could stay healthy except for, I guess, Hollywood Brown, and he's not even there this year. So, I mean, to talk about Baltimore, the biggest thing, obviously, I think everybody would agree on is that they have to stay reasonably healthy this year.
Oh, for sure. I mean, just for historical context, Football Outsiders tracks. They have a metric adjusted games lost, which tracks how many games you lost from guys who were expected to be starters. They're the most injured team in the last 20 years, according to Football Outsiders.
For sure.
And it's not close. They lost an extra 20 games compared to anyone else over that time span. So this is the most injured team, I mean, of 2/3 of my lifetime. So, historically ravaged by injuries. So
it's the most injured team that I've seen, ever, for sure. And the Niners had a thing with injuries for a while last year too, but it was mostly before the season started.
Well, the Niners in 2020 are actually the third most injured team on this list.
Yeah.
And the Giants are 3 times in the top 10. So you and I, we have experience with this.
Yep.
Unlike the Giants, and much like San Francisco last year, I expect a very strong bounce back.
Yeah, I do too. And it doesn't come without some distractions. One being the contract of Lamar Jackson. There are reports that they offered him like $43 million a year, and he's turned it down. I mean, if that is indeed true, like, what more do you want, bro? I don't know because sometimes with these contracts, it comes down to, like in Dak Prescott's case, it was just a matter of the years. Like he wanted 5, I think, and they were trying to give him 4 or something like that. So I totally get that perspective if that is the case. But 43 million is 43 million, man. Like I think that's a fair value for him, given the accolades that he's had, the success that this franchise has had with him at quarterback, his limitations as a passer. I think that everybody's still trying to give him at least one more year to figure it out. And even with that, most of the blame is falling on Greg Roman. So he to me, and I was on some threads arguing about it too, I think that's a fair value for today's market.
I mean, it sounds crazy, I think, because the NFL cap has skyrocketed over the last 10, 15 years. So it's like all of us played Madden all those years, and it's like you were paying a guy $20 million. It felt like a lot. And now this is just going rate. It is what it is. And I mean, if anyone's paying attention to this, it's like every time we announce one of these, people are like, oh, that's crazy. And then 3 years from now, he'll be the 9th highest paid quarterback. So the idea that like it only destroys you if the guy isn't a top 10 quarterback. And based on what we've seen so far, I think Lamar Jackson, is he top 5? Probably not, but he's in that top 10 range. And I mean, yeah, the question is, can he give you that little extra as a passer that we haven't seen? Because this was the number 1 seed 2 years ago. And I don't think he got worse as a passer since then. So I don't think the idea that this team can't win with him, that's kind of crazy to me. Again, like Peyton Manning, I don't think he won a playoff game to like year 5 or 6.
Yeah, so, I'm not entertaining that. I'm not entertaining that. The passing game wise, or him as a passer, I scouted him when he came out of college, and based on what I've seen as like him as a passer, it hasn't gotten any better, hasn't gotten any worse. I personally still think that they could scheme it a little better. A lot of his passes and the scheme in Louisville seemed to be more catered to him throwing inside the numbers, not just to the tight end, but just less vertical routes and more routes going either post, slants, digs, ends, things like that were bringing people back across the field, making it easier for him to read. If he has to scramble, giving him access to people that he knows is going to be coming within his field of vision, things like that. I've had one-on-one battles with Ronnie about Greg Roman for probably 6 years now, since I came in the group, actually. And I'm well documented on saying that for some reason he gets stale within 3 years. Typically, his offense goes stale. He did it in San Francisco. He did it in Buffalo. He's doing it now in Baltimore. And his passing game doesn't have a lot of creativity. The routes are pretty simple. I don't think he's catered to any of his quarterback strengths when he's had them as passers. And he does tend, because he did it with Kaepernick too, he just tends to want to go vertical. But in today's game, we see guys like Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes, they can throw the ball down the field, but that is not the basis of their passing attacks typically. They're usually guys working in space, and it just doesn't seem like Greg Roman has comprehended that this is today's NFL. People operate in space. You get your playmakers the ball, you get them the ball quickly, and then you let them make plays. He still has this kind of throwback mentality where he thinks he's got 4 to 5 seconds for routes to develop and things like that. But according to reports and Greg Roman himself, he's working directly with Lamar to come up with a better scheme, work on plays and things like that will benefit him. I think that's the biggest question for the Ravens as a team. Not necessarily what they'll do with defense, because they do have some defensive questions as well. But given their history, I fully expect them to figure that part out. Health was an issue with that as well. But with the offense, can they take the next step as a passing offense? Because we know the running offense will be there. They don't have Hollywood Brown anymore, but they still need to come up with some kind of consistency in the passing attack.
Yeah, it's interesting you brought that, up. What he specializes in is throwing over the middle. That's why Mark Andrews is by far his favorite target. So I do think Rashad Bateman is a better fit with Lamar Jackson than Hollywood Brown was, because he's a guy who can win over the middle. He's a sharp route runner. But what's interesting about their draft is, they obviously traded Marquise. They had 11 draft picks. They took no wide receivers. They took 2 tight ends. So that suggests to me that they might be, as much as it wouldn't be nice to see them work in space more, it seems like they're doubling down. That we're going to see a lot more 2 and 3 tight end sets. But they're in Isaiah Likely and Charlie Collar, they got tight ends that are pretty good pass catchers. So I'm wondering if they're just trying to give them better options when they go heavy in the passing game. I still think there's limitations there that, if you go heavy, you condense the field. So it's going to be a continued issue. But maybe that if those guys pan out, it gives you just enough of an edge where you can continue with that system and win. But I do think this is going to be the best team in the division, in large part just because they're going to be so much healthier.
Man, you're no fun. I was going to pick them.
Listen,
we're supposed to save that to the end, too.
There's a worst to first team every single year. This feels almost too obvious, but I just don't want to overthink it. I'm a big John Harbaugh believer. I'm less of a Jim Harbaugh believer. But, I think this is a really smart run team. I do think, though, it's the question of the ceiling. If Roman and Jackson figure it out, this is a legit Super Bowl contender. If they don't, this is still a playoff team. Maybe they finish second. I don't think they finish worse than second unless they get ravaged by injuries again. But they're in the hunt. It's the question of, can the passing game take that next step?
All right. First thing first, Dalton, I disagree. I think Bateman's a good receiver. I just think we haven't had an opportunity to see his skill set. I think his build and his skill set are perfect for somebody like Lamar Jackson because he's going to fight for the ball. He's a bigger target, and he's not afraid to go across the middle. But obviously, Andrews is who he's most comfortable with. But I think a lot of that comes from the fact that Andrews works within the hashes, and Lamar, that's what he sees. That's his field of vision. I mean, I'm not trying to knock him, but he's just comfortable throwing there. I mean, it was all over his film when he was in Louisville. The better passes coming out of the RPO sets and play actions and just him in general as a playmaker, when he bought time, he typically went back to the in between the hashes was the targets that he was trying to throw to. And then as far as this comment, we both know that's not true. I'll just talk to you offline. You know for a fact that's not true. What throwback ability does Kaepernick have and Lamar Jackson? They would have been receivers or running backs or practice squad if it was back in the day. They wouldn't even gotten a chance to play because they can run fast, and people would have been like, "Oh, you're too fast to play quarterback."
Well, Bill Polian already told us what he thought. So
yeah, that's true.
Lamar would not be playing QB for the Colts.
Oh, wait. All right, sorry. Here we go. If he gets stale in 3 years, why do you not come in years 1 and 2? Because I know it's coming. It's inevitable.
Year one was great. They just some bad luck in that Titans game. A few plays go differently.
Yeah, that was. I think they just got blitzed in that. Before we switch over to the next team, I do want to touch on the defense though, because it needs to be said. One thing that really hurt the Ravens defense outside of their injuries last year was that if anybody's ever watched the Ravens, you know very well they are the modern version of Engage 8 on every third down, basically. And you can get away with that when you have corners that can cover, right, or if you have a good pass rush. They did not have a good pass rush last year. Even before the injuries, it just was not a good pass rush. They didn't get the pressure that they typically get. That really hurt them, which obviously didn't help their corners either, who didn't have a lot of help from time to time. So they gave up a lot of big plays, especially to our buddy over in Cincinnati, just absolutely destroyed them. So I expect that to change just a little bit. Hamilton is not gonna be Ed Reed, put it that way. He's not gonna be Ed Reed, but they can do a lot with him. They can move him around, and he's a heat-seeking missile. I expect him to go back to being a physical defense first, and that'll take care of everything else type approach.
Well, they also changed up defensive coordinators. So Don Martindale, he's now with the Giants, which I'm afraid we're going to see a similar thing to the Ravens defense last year with the personnel New York has. But yeah, I think you'll probably see less. I think you're still going to see a heavy blitzing team. I mean, you should be if you have the best set of DBs in the NFL. But I don't think it's going to be. I think if they're playing Cincinnati, they'll probably be more likely to switch it up and not just decide to do Engage 8 when Joe Burrow is picking them apart. So I do think there will be a little more variance with what we see from that defense.
I'm starting a campaign to end cover zero as we know it in the NFL. I'm just waiting until Sundays to really bring that up every single week. Just stop. Even in preseason, even in your dual practices, just take that completely out of the playbook for every single team in the NFL. You cannot do it anymore. You just can't.
You definitely can't do it
against a top 10 quarterback. I'll put a disclaimer against a top 10 quarterback. You cannot run engage 8. It's just not going to work. This is the next question for you. For me, over under 9.5 is what the Ravens are sitting at. The over is minus 166. The under is plus 135. What do you think?
This is an easy over for me.
Yeah. I think it's the easy over too.
Well, again, we said this is a team that's getting the easiest schedule in the division. I think you could, argue who's better, them or Cincinnati. It's really close, but they get games against the Giants and Jags, and Cincinnati gets games against the Titans and the Cowboys. Like, there's a pretty significant difference.
And the Buccaneers.
Yeah. So, yeah, give me the Ravens on the over. I think they're hitting 11 or 12. So I like it easy.
If you have not used this yet, now's a great time. We actually do have a group sponsor, mybookie.ag. You can use promo code IBSports, and they will hook you up with a nice little rollover package and bonus match as well. Also, I guess it's not off the record since we're on live. It's a lot better than FanDuel if you don't want to claim it on your taxes. Okay, moving on. Cincinnati, the Bengals. Everybody loves them, man. Talk of the town. Joe Burrow and whatever you want to call them. They almost got there. They almost got all the way. I think they were the surprise last year.
I
don't think it's much that's up for a debate. I did have the Cardinals as a scant surprise because of how well they did, but the fact that the Bengals got all the way to the Super Bowl obviously gets them, lets them take the cake. They were 10-7, 4-2 in their division last year, and that's primarily what bolstered them to the front. My big thing from last year going into this year that I wanted to touch on with the Bengals, it's odd to say because Mixon's numbers are not that bad, but they were not a good running team.
No,
I think they need to run the ball better this year, and I know we're in a different time. Running backs don't matter as Ronnie has convinced everyone in the group.
Correctly convinced everyone.
Yeah. All y'all nerds. Running backs don't matter. I still somewhat disagree with that notion. However, using the running game can help, especially when you got a quarterback that takes a lot of hits. Joe Burrow, it doesn't matter what they do with the offensive line. I just think that's who he is. He's just tough and not very. He's just wild, reckless. That'd be a good example. Reckless. And he takes a lot of hits. So you kind of want to not put him in situations where he's got to take unnecessary hits on a regular basis. We'd love to see them use Mixon more in the running game. I think he's definitely a dynamic back, probably somewhat underrated in what he does for this team. So that was basically the biggest thing for me with them is that I think they just need to figure out a way to become a more consistent running game.
Yeah, I don't know that they should run more. I mean, actually, if you look last year, the first 10, 12 weeks, Cincinnati was actually running pretty heavily because Joe Burrow is still kind of coming back off that injury. He wasn't feeling totally safe, especially behind that line. And he is a guy who just likes to hold the ball as well. So I don't know that it's running the ball more. I actually think they'll pass more, and they should with who they have. But I agree. They need to be more effective when they do.
Yeah, maybe apply it more effectively. Maybe that's a better way to say it.
And then I also think this is a team where normally a team like this makes a jump and you're like, all right, this is a team that'll regress. They're going to come back a little. They might be 500. But the beauty of when you hit on that QB on the rookie contract, they had a ton of money to spend. And a lot of that money went to the offensive line. They have 3 new starters. The 2 guys who aren't new starters are Jonah Williams, who's a first-round draft pick, and Jackson Carman, who's a second-round draft pick. So they got high draft picks and guys they brought in like La'el Collins from Dallas. And this offensive line is the most improved in the NFL. So that's going to make a big difference for Joe Mixon and Joe Burrow. So I think this offense is going to be elite. I think the question is just, does the defense look like it did in the playoffs? In which case, this could be
they stepped up
in the NFL.
Yeah.
Or are they the team we saw for most of the year, which is fine, like an okay defense. But if they're that, then yeah, I think they finish second. They're a good playoff team. If the defense is whatever it was at the end, yeah, maybe we see the Bengals make back-to-back Super Bowls, which would be, I guess, on par for the 2020 is how crazy these years have been.
Their defense was one of those defenses that if you probably looked at like advanced numbers, like if you broke it down to an analytical standpoint, they were probably a lot better than what they look like on like base terms, like simple terms, like how many sacks did they get and things like that. I feel like they were good in spots during the regular season when they needed to be for the most part. And then when the playoffs came, man, I mean, they were just a totally different team, which a lot of that probably had to do with momentum. But
even the Kansas City game, it's a tale of two halves, where the first half, Mahomes is doing whatever he wants. The second half, and they didn't score until like the last drive of that game, right? To tie it, if I remember right. Like it was, I've never seen something switch like that. I guess the Patriots against Mahomes. So that one was the reverse the couple years before, where they didn't score for a half and then he was lights out in the second. So yeah, I mean they came up big in a lot of spots. They just couldn't stop Cooper Kupp like everyone else in the
NFL. You mean Aaron Donald?
Well, that too, but I mean they had
Sorry, I'm sorry.
Donald,
sorry.
To the end.
I know everybody loves offense. Everybody loves offense. That's great, but the unstoppable force that is Aaron Donald is what actually won that game. So.
We already talked about how the offensive line is trash.
I'm just saying. Whoever they picked up ain't stopping them still. So I'm not worried about that.
They got to slow him down for a tenth of a second longer, and then
Collins might get a hand on him. You know, he might.
But he'll get in the way, which is more than the team was doing last year.
But the Bengals is in general, like they're one of those teams that if they, again, everybody's going to be if they stay healthy, but literally don't change nothing that you did last year. That was a winning formula. I don't.
Yeah. What they did the second half of last year in the playoffs continue to do. I will say I'm still a little bit of a Zach Taylor skeptic. We'll see. You know, maybe he proves me wrong this year. Maybe he is a legit coach. I mean, I guess the McVay tree has been largely successful so far, but
it's got your boy on it. I wish you would slander Zach Taylor because I would love to bring that up.
I love Joe Burrow. I love Jamar Chase. I love Higgins. I think my biggest question mark now that the offensive line looks like it should be good is Zach Taylor.
Well, yeah, and I think they dealt with some shuffling last year on the offensive line as well too. Zach Taylor did the best that he could with what he had. I think if you look back at what the talent was on that team as a total, and you look at what they did, even if you just take out the playoffs, if you just look at the regular season,
they did well.
I think he maximized their potential. They were very good on the road, which is something that you don't typically see with the team so young. And I think last year's experience is really going to help them. But what's going to hurt them this year, I think, is their strength of schedule is a lot tougher. And their road games are a lot tougher, and they're against more seasoned teams on the road this year. And it's gonna be a grind. I think they had dealing with the Ravens injuries, Baker Mayfield not being as good as he should have been, 80-year-old Big Ben. Yeah. I mean, they kind of had it easy in their division last year.
I guess the question here is, though, I mean, if Deshaun potentially misses the entire season, did those teams really get better? I mean, I guess Pittsburgh.
It doesn't matter if Deshaun doesn't. If Deshaun comes back in 6 games, the Browns didn't get better.
Right. So that's my question is, I mean, I definitely think their schedule got harder. I'm looking at Football Outsiders. They had them with the 30th schedule last year, and their projection is the 6th hardest schedule this year. Yeah. So that's a huge jump. But within the division, I don't know that it's significant. I guess the Baltimore being healthy is a pretty big difference.
Yeah, but Baltimore being healthy.
The other two, I don't know that it's a huge change. I mean, I think Pittsburgh, I don't know. I think Pittsburgh would be a better team. I don't know if they're going to finish with a better record, but I think Big Ben was that bad. They will be better. I just don't know that it's a huge jump, though.
Well, I say the Browns didn't necessarily get better, but they match up well against the Bengals still. Their defense matches up well against the Bengals offense. And they can, I think the Browns can make it an ugly game, slow it down, and play a different style that I don't think the Bengals are quite accustomed to, or would prefer, and that could essentially give them at least a split there, which would go a long way, because then they got to beat Baltimore twice, and then Pittsburgh. I expect them to at least split there. Just depends on who the quarterback is.
Yeah, I think with Cincinnati, I think they definitely are getting 3 wins in division. But yeah, do they have enough to sweep one of these teams? Because that could be the difference between playoffs or no playoffs, or division or no division.
Well, yeah, division. They'll probably still make. They should still make the playoffs.
I mean, it's 7 teams, but it's there are a number of teams in the AFC where if you put them in the NFC, I'd be like playoff lock, top 2 seed probably. The Bengals and Ravens are both teams I feel like that. Like if you put either of these teams in the NFC East, I'd be like, well, they're running away with this division.
Oh well, yeah,
that's teams. Yeah. And even all the other ones, you'd be like, well, it's the depth in the AFC. I think is so much greater. I think there's like 8 teams you look at in the NFC, and you're like, those teams are pretty good. You look at the other 8, you're like, they're crap. Like maybe one of them surprises us, but it's pretty bad. Where there's a whole division in the AFC where you could argue every one of those teams should make the playoffs in the West. So there's a lot of competition.
Over under 9.5 for the Bengals.
I mean, that's where that line should be. My lean is towards the over. I think they probably get to 10, but what's the payout for the over on that?
The over is minus 134. The under is plus 110. I'm gonna take the under.
That's a stay away, really, for me. But if I have to take one, it's the over.
Yeah, I'm just picking. I'm not gonna.
I love the Ravens. I would say if you want to bet season-long bets, I would take that bet. Whereas this one, I would steer clear.
I'm only taking the under because I am not confident that Joe Burrow makes it through the season. I just don't. I think he takes too many hits. I know he's tough, but I feel like there's going to be some issues, man. And I always go back to that one play in the Super Bowl, which to me defines who he is as a player, where he just gave himself up to get hit by Aaron Donald in the back when he was going to the sideline instead of just getting down or really hustling out of bounds. And I'm like, yo, to me, he still does that. He still just takes unnecessary hits, man. Like he's going to fight for extra yards and times when he could just get down and let Joe Mixon or somebody get that on the next play. Like he's just his greatest asset is also his greatest downfall. And I think we'll be able to tell that by week 3. Like if he's changed mentally, like if he's going to start or stop taking so many hits. If he can stay upright, yeah, they'll get the over probably. Yeah. But if he can't stay upright, which like I said, it's not always on sacks. Like quarterbacks get hit on a regular basis. So I just get a little worried about him.
Well, they open up with Pittsburgh, so that's a good team to gauge whether or not he's going to be playing smart in regards to that.
The Browns. Oh man, we could just go on and on and on and on and on about the Browns. They don't even have an over/under because they don't know what's going to happen with Deshaun Watson. If Watson plays, I would probably think it'd be like 8.5.
I mean, I guess it depends on how many games he plays, but just your best guess over/under the 8 wins they had last year.
Oh. Yeah, that's true. But the only problem with that is that like how I don't know how much odds makers value Deshaun Watson. Like, and we don't have much to see from preseason, but the 5 throws that we saw already didn't look good at all. I doubt it's gonna get much better than that.
I was very pleased.
Yeah, so I'm like I don't know exactly what they would do. They won 8 games last year. That's why I was saying like 8.5, maybe 9.
Yeah. The other thing is we don't know what they do if it comes down that it's staying with the full season. Like, do they become the team that makes a Jimmy G trade?
I don't think they make a Jimmy G trade just because it's one. Like, what does that do for your locker room? I mean, it helps. It helps you guys be competitive. But
full season, if it's a full season, I think it maybe makes sense. If it's 12 games, I think you just say we ride with Brissett for 12 games and then see what happens. Right, those are the options. That's why I'm saying if it's a full season, I guess they've already traded a bunch of picks to get Deshaun in the first place, but I might give it a go with Jimmy G.
I highlighted Kareem Hunt status, and I need to change the banner. Sorry, but Kareem Hunt, like just I haven't heard a lot of positive things from him or his camp or his agent or whoever's talking on his behalf. He doesn't seem happy about his contract status, and he's a running back, and the league is definitely quick to discard you as a running back.
There's no reason to pay Kareem Hunt. I mean, they have,
and that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. But I'm just saying, if you're looking to extend your career and your Kareem Hunt, they got Nick Chubb. They don't need me, bro. Because in this case, less is more. You'll get paid more if you don't touch the field and risk getting hurt. Because I mean, we know he's talented.
Yeah,
but Nick Chubb is the workhorse, and they used Dearness Johnson last year. So
yeah, he looked. I mean, this is one of the best offensive lines in the NFL.
Yeah, so
any decent running back should be able to run in Stefanski's system with this offensive line.
I'm not a big Stefanski fan, but I did like their defense last year, obviously highlighted by Myles Garrett, who is a beast, and I fully expect him to continue to be a beast. They will need him to be a beast. Their secondary is going to be tough. I think they will be the most physical defense on the field in that division until the Ravens figure out what they're going to do.
Over the Steelers as well, though.
Yeah, I think they will. Yeah.
I mean, this might be the best defensive division in the NFL. Probably. I can't even think of another division actually that comes close when you look at all four teams. These are all average or better defenses. And I think two or three of them have a shot to be elite. So Stefanski falls into the Roman thing a little bit for me, where I love the run scheme, and then when it comes to the pass scheme, he didn't do any of the stuff that Baker Mayfield. I mean, granted, Mayfield sucked last year partially because of the injury, but Mayfield is a guy who functions best when, again, you spread out the field. You put three wide out there, you give him room to work. And Stefanski likes his double tight end set. So
yeah,
I don't know.
Baker has some fundamental flaws too, but he should be happy where he's at in Carolina. They seem to know more about what to do with that type of player. So, but yes, Stefanski's set in his ways, which should be interesting because Deshaun Watson doesn't come from a compact set either.
No, he doesn't.
That's not really his
Bill O'Brien for years.
Yeah.
Though. So
yeah, but Bill, to his credit, Bill had an offense designed for Deshaun Watson that catered to his skill set. I know I trashed Deshaun Watson coming out of college for several reasons. Just had a vendetta against him, and Corey and I used to argue about him all the time. And I did give credit to O'Brien and Watson for working out a system and a scheme that was comfortable for him and executing it at a high level. So Stefanski, again, I don't know why some of these guys. I mean, the league is a copycat league. They'll copy everything, but for some reason, when people come from one scheme to another, and it's obvious that they thrived in that first scheme, they just won't piggyback the scheme. They'll just try to reinvent the wheel or force the person into what they think they should do. And
it's the classic square peg round hole.
Yeah. So I don't know, but we'll see.
We'll see eventually. It may or may not be this year.
If I guess, not to spend too much time on it, but if Watson comes back after 6 games, and I would give him maybe a month to kind of get his feet under him, that leaves him with 7 games. If they don't make the playoffs, Stefanski's probably getting axed. I don't think they're going to have
really?
I don't think they're going to have a lot of patience with him. They just think about the last couple of years, and then the fact that they had Baker Mayfield, and they just didn't do anything with that, and then you go out and you sell your soul literally for Deshaun Watson,
sure.
And then you get him, and this guy's not maximizing his talents, and you're paying him $230 million.
I mean, if it played out where he only missed the first 6, which includes Carolina, the Jets, and Atlanta, so they should be able to win it. I think they should at least get through 500, even without Watson, through those first 6. Sucks. Well, I mean, Baker sucked last year, so they still won 8. But if he missed the 6 games, then sure, I could see what you're saying. That if they miss the playoffs and Deshaun Watson's playing 10, 11 games, then I could see him getting fired. I think Deshaun's going to miss at least 3 months, if not the entire season. If that happens, Stefanski's good. This is unless they go 2-15, he's back next year. Like I don't see why they're not. They would have patience to wait to see what his offense looks like with Deshaun. So it all depends. If they miss the playoffs and Deshaun's playing 10, 12 games, he could get fired. But my expectation is we're not going to see a lot, or maybe at all, any Deshaun. And so I think Stefanski's he's free till next year. Then the pressure will be on both of them heavily. But
I think you're sympathizing too much. I think they'd get rid of him.
I mean, I'm rooting against everyone on this team now, at least who runs the team. So great if he gets fired, but I don't see it happening.
Steelers over-unders at 7.5. I mean, the number one question is who's going to start at quarterback. And then the number two question is, will they have enough offense to take some pressure off of Najee Harris? Just to put into perspective what Najee was last year. Again, running backs don't matter, people. Keep that in mind now. Running backs don't matter. However, Najee had the sixth most carries by a rookie in league history. The sixth most carries by a rookie. And we're going to end up in a situation where they're going to wear him out like they did Ezekiel Elliott, like they did Christian McCaffrey. They're going to be the talk of the town the first year or two when they're healthy. The only person who ever survives for some reason is my boy Derrick Henry. But everybody else usually starts falling apart by year 3 of carrying the ball 320 times. And they'll be like, oh, running backs don't matter. I mean, he matters enough. He was carrying the team last year. But they definitely need to figure out a way to take some pressure off of him. I think they could surprise some people a little with that offense. I think even if they go with Mitch Trubisky, I'm not saying he's great, but I think Mitch is better than the Roethlisberger we saw last year. I think everybody on the roster right now is better than the Roethlisberger that we saw last year. That was rough. That was rough. I don't know how they won the games that they won. I don't know. It was a miracle.
I mean, we talked about this last year, but just for people who haven't listened before or don't remember, Ben Roethlisberger was PFF's worst graded quarterback who qualified. So that's out of 37 quarterbacks. That's worse than Sam Darnold. That's worse than Zach Wilson. That's worse than Davis Mills. The worst quarterback in the NFL last year. And it's not just that he played bad. He had no want to ever turn his back on the defense. And so they ran extremely low amount of play action, which is one of the cheat codes to the NFL is you want to run a lot of play action. That's what everyone's realized over the last 10 years. And the Steelers weren't doing it, not because Matt Canada didn't want to do that. He's a guy who coming in, I was reading about how this guy loves play action. He wants to use a lot of motion. They weren't doing those things because Ben didn't want them. So he was holding back the entire offense in pretty much every way someone can hold an offense back outside of not knowing the playbook. So, yeah, I think Trubisky or Pickett, I think either one will be better than Big Ben last year. The problem is the offensive line still sucks, though. I mean, that's one of the reasons, in fairness to Ben, he didn't want to turn his back on. It's an awful offense. This is a bottom 5 offensive line last year. I don't think that's going to be different this year. So I think they'll be better just because I think they'll be a more inventive offense, and I think they'll have a QB who can at least move. But I think this is a team that kind of lucked into a lot of wins last year. And so I think they're going to struggle. They could be a better team, but they're going to struggle to match the record from last season.
Hey, watch your mouth. It wasn't luck, baby. It was coaching. I got the stat here. Hold on. I'm glad you said that. I got the stat.
0 losing seasons?
No. Where is it? Last year in games that were decided by 7 points or fewer, the Steelers were 7-1-1, baby. 7-1-1.
That regression. Get ready for regression.
I'm just saying.
They go 500 this. I mean, again, I think they'll be better this year. But if you go 500,
if you put the Lions at 7-1-1 in games like that, they probably make the playoffs last year. I'm just saying that's the difference.
Absolutely would have.
So I mean, shout out to my boy, Mike Tomlin. Black coaches matter. But shout out to Mike Tomlin and the Steelers because again, I don't know, man. I just thought that was painful. I thought Ben should have retired 2 years ago.
He should have.
It was just awful to watch. I also want to take back something that I said earlier. Don't put Mason Rudolph in that. They'll be better.
No, you're right.
Yeah, don't put Mason Rudolph.
Let's be clear. If Mason Rudolph has to play, it'll be as bad or worse.
Yeah,
Rudolph is awful.
I take that back. One thing that they need to fix on their defensive side is their rushing defense. They were the worst rushing defense in the league, giving up 5 yards flat a carry. That's pretty bad. And in a division that features the Browns and the Ravens, that is not a good recipe. That is not a good recipe. So you want to make sure you fix that, if anything. The over-under at 7.5. I'm going to pass just because I need to know who's the quarterback. I just need to know who the quarterback is before I do something like that. Let me see. Don't hate, bro. Don't hate.
I think it ends this year, so RC will be happy. But just going back to that run defense thing, I'm looking at the Football Outsiders run defense metrics, and so second level and then open field ranks on run defense. So that's once you're getting into the linebacking core and then into the DBs. They're 30th and 32nd. Oh, yeah. So basically, if you could get past their defensive line, which is actually pretty good, then you had tackling problems on the back end. And so that is something that hopefully coaching can figure out. I do think they are a well-coached team, but 7.5, again, I mean, Vegas is good at what they do. That feels about right. I think this is I'd lean the over, but I think it's a 7 or 8. So I would also hard pass on this.
Well, last year I said they don't win no more than 8 games, and damn it if they didn't win exactly 8. So it was a little frustrating for me, but that was like my money bet. Bowley said that when I was half drunk. I was like, Steelers ain't gonna win more than 8 games. I remember Keith called me crazy.
I was so angry when they won that last game because I started the month of the season saying they were finishing 8-1, and they were going to be the first 500 team of the 17-game era, and they blew it, and they beat the Ravens in overtime. So I'll never forgive them.
That's right, baby. Never had a losing record. So eat it. Switching over to the NFC North, we will start with everybody's favorite team, but not really, the Chicago Bears.
Bears.
They're a popular team, man.
We're going to build our way up on this division.
Look, I say they're popular because Bear fans are very dedicated. They keep that same 80s energy. I appreciate it too. But let me just start by saying I hated Matt Nagy. I hope he never gets another head coaching job ever again. I just thought he failed Andy Reid's tree. I took it as an insult. Like, I seriously looked at this dude for the last couple years and was like, this man got a job, but Eric B couldn't get a job, and Doug Peterson won a Super Bowl. Like, how did you share the same room with these people? Like, you look like you never coached football a day in your life, let alone called an offensive play a day in your life. Like, that was my biggest thing. And then they gave him Justin Fields, who, I don't care what you say, he's talented, and he couldn't do anything with them. He didn't run. I think the first like 6 or 7 games, I was telling Ronnie that he was sabotaging the kid. I was like, there's no way that this is your scheme, this is your game plan with this type of player, with these type of people on your team. I know they're not that talented, but like, you wasn't trying to do anything that would benefit the team. It was like you were just doing what you thought was best. But I think the coaches in today's game who are successful are the ones who realize that they have to utilize their talent. Like, you can't box people in anymore. Like, there's too many athletes in the league. You have to find like things for them to do. Case in point, Kyle Shanahan, not my favorite person, but he's my coach, and I like to use him as an example. We got a lot of track guys on the team this year for some reason, like in the preseason. So he has schemed up passing schemes to send more people vertical and run those guys down the field because he's got a fucking quarterback who throws the ball far. So it's like, you could run the Jimmy G offense with Trey Lance, but why would you?
Right.
And that's what I was seeing with Nagy. I'm like, you got Justin Fields. Hell, you had Mitch Trubisky. You still wasn't doing, like, you could have run the Nick Foles offense with Mitch Trubisky and it should have been fine. And Mitch is a better athlete. Like, Mitch is a good enough athlete to at least move the ball. That was the thing that really irked me, is that they didn't have any consistency in moving the ball at all, no matter who was the quarterback. And it wasn't an execution thing, it was a scheme thing. And so happy to see him go. They picked up the defense coordinator from the Colts, which is probably a good thing for them. The biggest pickup for them was getting Getsy, the QB coach, passing game coordinator for the Packers. I think that'll be great for somebody like Justin Fields. So I am optimistic about what I'm going to see on the field this year. Hopefully it'll be a better product than last year. Don't expect them to be world killers or world beaters, but to get them competitive and moving in the right direction, I think would do good.
Yeah, it's interesting because I agree with you on the coaching. I get annoyed by how often you just hear pundits being like, well, they hired a defensive coach, so they're sabotaging the quarterback. It's like,
yeah.
All right, well, they stole the QB coach from a division rival. So, or was he the QB coach? I actually might be wrong.
Yeah, he was QB coach, passing game coordinator.
Yeah, so it's like, I mean, they watched the Green Bay system. It's worked pretty well. Granted, you have Aaron Rodgers, but still, Aaron Rodgers didn't look this way 4 years ago when he was playing with Mark McCarthy. So I do think the system is
not analytical. Mike McCarthy,
if such a thing exists. I can tell you, analytics doesn't tell you to run a QB sneak with.
Oh my god!
But yeah, I think they have a really smart, adaptable coaching staff. I just don't know what they're doing team building wise. I mean, I don't really care that much about the Raquan Smith stuff. I mean, if you go by PFF, he didn't even play well last year, so they're reluctant to pay a middle linebacker $18 million. I get it, that's fine. And granted, they only had 3 day 1 and 2 picks, but in part because they traded for Fields.
Mm-hmm.
But you use your first 2 picks on defense, and then the third pick is on a 25-year-old wide receiver. This is a team. They also lost their best offensive lineman, James Daniels, who actually went to the Steelers, which is one guard spot where they'll be better next year for Pittsburgh. But and then Allen Robinson, obviously, he needed a new place. That's fine, but they didn't replace him with anybody. This is Darnell Mooney, Cole Kmet, and at best a bunch of guys who would be third receivers on another team. I don't even know if they have a guy who should be a third receiver on another team. Byron Pringle. Like, what's there to be excited about there? And again, the Fields is going to be running for his life again. So I like what they did coaching wise with their hires. I don't like what they did team building wise. I know, again, they had limitations because of the draft picks, and I think they still have a lot of dead money. But man, I feel for Fields because I think as much as the system might be good, I just don't think the talent around him is good enough. I think this is potentially a bottom 5 team in the NFL.
It's gonna take time. And like I said, anybody that's listening, when I say I want to see a team be competitive, that's code for they're not talented. So
yeah. Honestly, if they're I know that I don't think they had much difference. I think they actually might have had a better record than Detroit last year. But just watching those two play last year, Detroit was the team where you felt like, oh, these guys are bringing it every single week. I mean, again, they lost a lot of close games. Chicago was having games where they had that one game they gained 56 total yards. So if they go 4-13, 5-12, if it just looks creative, again, look a little creative on offense, like you're trying to cater to Justin Fields' talent, and then just be a high effort team. I think that's all you're trying to see from them. On best case scenario, actually might be that they finish 4-13. They can do a trade back next year because everyone's trying to get a QB, and they're not. And then you can really hardcore revamp this team next offseason. I think that's when you really want to see progress. I think this year you're seeing some progress from Fields. That's the only real goal. I don't think you should expect to see a lot of wins.
Yeah. Just if you're a Bears fan, I would agree. Just look to see progress. Look to see the talent that you did invest in is well worth it. And then you can work on building around those guys at a later date. Over under at 6.5, minus 161 for the over, plus 131 for the under. I would definitely go for the under.
Yeah, I love that under. I'm surprised it's that high.
Yeah,
I thought when you said the minus, I was like, oh, the under is minus 160. Why are people? Is that just again Bears fans being Bears fans? They want to be optimists. I don't know that doesn't even feel like a Bears fan thing. I feel like Bears fans would be like, we know it's gonna be bad.
I think it's just a lot of people or odds makers probably really like the hires, not really paying attention to the talent, thinking that, hey, this team won 6 games last year. They got better coaching this year, or more optimistic about the coaching this year. So they think that maybe it'll still run into about 7 games. But I think that this next team is actually going to be a lot better than people are anticipating. And I hate to say it, but it's the Lions. Right. And I think the Lions are going to throw a wrench into that 6.5 over anyway. They were 3-13-1 last year, 2-4 in the division. Probably could have been 6 or 7 wins. I made a post about it on week 1 of preseason. Like, have the Lions lost a game in the last year and a half that didn't come down to a field goal or a last second score by like a drive? Like, they just seem to have a knack for really close games. And as much as I hate Dan Campbell, there is actually evidence that he didn't coach that bad last year. And so I can't be but so critical. I still think I can't even say he lacks intelligence anymore, actually. I have to say I was probably wrong. The proof last year, the offense took off after they fired Anthony Lynn. The play caller after they fired Anthony Lynn, for the most part, was Dan Campbell. Yeah. They really saw it in the running game. They had 126.8 yards per carry after Lynn left. That was a 36% increase in productivity from their running game with Dan Campbell as opposed to Anthony Lynn, which is wild because if you looked at Dan Campbell, didn't actually know him, just listen to his sound bites, listen to him talk, watch how he operates on the sideline, you would not give him credit for being able to coach offense and formulate sentences at the same time. But he's doing it. And they seem to have some chemistry with the offensive coordinator that they brought in to kind of take over the passing game. I think he opened them up a little. So there should be some optimism there for their passing attack. I know folks are down on Jared Goff, especially after the Rams won the Super Bowl. But statistically, he wasn't that awful last year. He kept the turnovers down, which is good. And I think it was 19 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. He's usually like a 50-50 guy or close to 50-50. Like, he's just not somebody I always joke and call him a robot. He is kind of a things have to go a certain way. He doesn't make adjustments in between plays, but it seems like schematically the changes that they made after Lynn came catered to him more. They're getting back Okuda, I think it is, on defense. I'm happy to see that. Hopefully he's playing well. I thought their defense played with a lot of energy, a lot of heart, and in games where they were not as talented as the other team, case in point, that Ravens game, they seem to have the energy, the fire, and the effort to almost overcome the lack of talent between the two of them. And I think if they carry that over into this year, they'll find themselves more on the winning side of things rather than those heartbreaking losses.
Yeah, I mean, this is a team that lost, I think it was 4 games by a field goal or less. I mean, and that includes like Baltimore week 3. So that's before Baltimore was ravaged by injury.
Man, he made like a 67-yard
6-yard field goal. Yeah, NFL record. That's the Lions season,
which shouldn't have counted, by the way.
I don't even remember. Was there?
Yeah, it was. I'm pretty sure. It wasn't the time run out. Something happened, where I think they gave them the play, but it shouldn't have counted. I think it should have been a penalty on the Ravens or something. But I have to go back and look.
And they lost at Minnesota. I believe that was also a lot, if I'm remembering right. Yeah, last second field goal by Greg Joseph. So, they've played competitive teams well. A number of, they got a couple blowouts in there, but there are a lot of close games they lost. If Justin Fields was on this team, I'd be all in Lions sleeper team. This is a really good offensive line. Amon-Ra St. Brown looked good. We'll see what happens if Jameson Williams, when he can come back. Because I think the second half of the year, you put Jameson Williams out there, if he's remotely healthy and he's stretching the field, this offense could get interesting. Again, Goff's no one's excited about him, but if you can just get him not to kill you, you can stay in games. Defensively, I think they're an interesting team. Aaron Glenn had that unit, again, working really hard. Like you said, this was a team that came in with effort every week. And then Jeff Okudah was awful as a rookie, missed like all of last season. If he were to bust out year 3 and play remotely close to the guy people thought he was going to be, and then Hutchinson, if he turns out to be what they want him to be, this defense could be pretty good. Like when I said earlier, there's a lot of NFC teams, like half the NFC, you can write them off. The Giants, Washington, they're going to suck. Bears are going to suck. Panthers, maybe if you like have some super Mayfield belief, but they'll probably suck. Falcons are going to be bad. Seahawks are going to be bad. The Lions are the one team where I think most people are like, they suck. And I'm like, this could be the surprise team. If it reverses and they're going 6-2 in 1-score games, maybe they win 9. Maybe this is the 7th seed in the NFC. I don't know that I would bank on that, but it's not. This is kind of the one team where I'm like, there's enough pieces here. If things break right, I could see it.
All right, so let me start off by saying we're not in the business of hyping up Hutchinson or T-Rexison, as I call him. All right, if you're going to start talking about how he generates holes and things like that, because I know those are the type of stats you like to pull up. Like, look, on 67% of his plays, he's getting held.
Yeah, no, maybe he's Max Crosby. All right.
Maybe yeah, which wouldn't be bad. It wouldn't be bad. But I just also want to point out that I don't blame Okudah. I blame Matt Patricia.
And, that's also a good point.
Yeah, and the fact that for some reason I think he thought he was it's a family show, but I'll say it, thought he was fucking Gilmore, and he's a rookie. Like, there's a transition, man. Like, you can't. I keep telling people too. You look at the history of the Patriots defense during Belichick and Patricia's era. They had veterans as the island person. They had Revis and those types of guys. They didn't put a fucking rookie on an island and expect him to do any other things that they got from veterans. Like, again, we're talking about bad coaching and stupidity. You just setting the guy up for failure. He was that guy in college. He put him on the island. He did great in college. Did great at Ohio State. I thought he was fantastic. But there's still a learning curve to the NFL, and he's going against fucking Devontae Adams, Adam Thielen. Like, these are good.
Justin Jefferson.
Like, Justin Jefferson. Yeah, like, he's going against like elite receiver. There's no break except from when he played the Bears. There was no break. So I'm like, dude, come on. Like, what did you expect? So
Aaron Glenn should be a solid step up for his development.
And I hate that he kind of, before he got hurt, he had this stigma like he's a bust. But it's like, I think it's more of the coach and, again, the scheme not catering to the strengths. That defense was pretty solid last year. The pass rush was pretty solid last year, all things considered, and it should get better with Hutchinson. Yeah. Linebackers play good. Like, if I'm being like, serious, the record doesn't reflect the team. Like, I think they were, again, all the close games that they lost and things like that, they could very well have been a 7-team win, which, if you look at their record, which means they're twice as good as their record, which is why I think they got them at 6.5, because at some point you expect them to overcome those really tight games, to come up with those stops, or to hold on to those leads. If they can keep the robot updated to iOS like 15 or something like that, and lean on this running game that they have, which is multifaceted. They don't not only just run, they can catch out the backfield too. So I think, and then they got a really good tight end to secure some drives and things like that. So there's talent there. And I think it's enough talent that I would be willing to take the over 6.5 on the Lions, which is wild to say, but I think we'll see them at 7 wins.
That's probably a pass for me. I think 6.5 feels right for them. Again, I think the Bears should be like 5.5, but
yeah. Well, if I take the under on the Bears, and I'm assuming that they're going to be at 4-5, then I feel like the Lions, I should be taking the over to get to at least 7. Yeah.
I mean, they're a team too, where if you look at, again, this Outsiders numbers, 5th hardest schedule last year, projected to have the 26th ranked schedule this year.
Yeah.
So that makes a pretty big difference. So I can see it. I think 7's a fair guess.
Yeah,
I'll go with you. I'll say the over. Give me 7
okay.
and 1.
Packers. I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't talk about the Packers given the history with the Packers over the last, I don't know, Aaron Rodgers' career in the playoffs. But at some point, your man's got to show up. You know, he's too talented. He had a solid organization despite McCarthy being a buffoon. Still, as far as consistency goes with coaching, with ownership, with players and everything, like the Packers have been more or less the model franchise in the NFC. So I feel like it's fair to say that he should have more than one Super Bowl. He really should.
That's fair to say.
Yeah.
I will say if we're talking about the McCarthy years, I would put that more on McCarthy overall. I think you look at like that Seahawks loss. That's more on McCarthy than is Aaron Rodgers to me, if everyone remembers that one. But
I don't think Aaron Rodgers is easy to coach. So there's that.
That's fair. I think that's clear. This last game, this was there's no excuse for it. Because before, I remember Keith posted in the group, and I'd looked this up like a year prior when I was trying to like come up with my all-time QB rankings. Up until that Niners game, the Packers had scored at least 20 points in every playoff game Aaron Rodgers had started. So you could say he didn't come up when he needed to, but he never really shit the bed. And he shit the bed in that Niners game. And there's always that classic excuse of, they had the bye, they were rusty. The touchdown drive was the first drive of the game. They weren't rusty. They came out good, and then they sucked the rest of the game. And tons of credit to D'Amico Ryans, that defense, great job. I mean, if people have watched the film, there's some open guys, and Aaron Rodgers was not finding them. So, yeah, this feels a little. I mean, I guess every year now is kind of make or break legacy-wise. Like, he's one of the greatest QBs of all time. That's secured. But if you're a Packers fan and you want to be able to say this is the best QB ever, or this is the second or third, whatever you want to say, and do that, and everyone you're talking to will keep a straight face, he's got to come through again. One Super Bowl is not going to be enough, especially when you're looking at, Tom Brady is still right there with Rodgers every single year, and he's got 6 Super Bowls. Does he have 7 Super Bowls? I don't even remember how many Super Bowls he has.
He's got too many.
It's 7. That's ridiculous.
3 of which should come with an asterisk, but that's neither here nor there.
But yeah, Rodgers has to come through. I think actually one of the fascinating things about this Green Bay team is it's kind of designed like an old school Patriots team. It's like, all right, we're going to have a good offensive line. We're building up the defense. It should be really good. And, for Tom Brady back then and Aaron Rodgers now, you've got to figure out the passing game. We're trusting you to just elevate whoever we put out there to give us enough because we're investing in the rest of the team. So, yeah, this is a fascinating strategy compared to like what we've historically seen from them.
Packers loss in Devontae Adams.
Yeah.
34.3% of their receiving yards, 30% of their receptions, 29% of their targets, and he was top 10 in every major receiving category in Packers history. Yeah. I would say that is probably the definition of irreplaceable. And
right, and I get why
they lost their passing game coordinator and QB coach. So I know Aaron Rodgers is in his 20th season and back-to-back MVP. But I mean, good luck with that because he's a head case. He is not Tom Brady when it comes to the mental aspect of things. And he's already on record telling people like, if you don't catch the ball, you're getting benched type stuff. I'm sure that's going over well for his young receiving core trying to build some confidence. So good luck, man. Good luck. Their over under is at 11.5. I think their defense will be a lot better this year. I think
this could be a really good defense.
Yeah, I think Kenny Clark is gonna start getting his name in everyday households on Sundays because he's a pretty big. He's a beast. He's a big guy and he's pretty solid. He ain't Aaron Donald, but he's good. So I think with him and up front, something that they haven't had in a long time, and being disruptive as a nose tackle on both the run and the passing game. I think that's going to set the tone for them. If they can stay healthy, in their secondary, they've got some guys that can lock you up. Just old school man-to-man, which is great.
Jared Alexander is is as good a corner as there is the. I mean, he's right up there with the Ramseys of the world. He's
Yeah.
right there. The offensive line is still really good. I mean, I guess
They stay hurt. Stay hurt.
hurt.
I don't want to hear nothing about what's his name, Bakhtiari. How you say it? How you say
I believe it's Bakhtiari.
Bakhtiari.
Devondre Campbell was.
Let me rant on this bullshit here. Bakhtiari had the audacity to be rated a 98 or something like that on Madden. Like he never played. No, he's not even in the same category as Trent Williams. It's not even worth discussing that. I was more offended that he was ahead of I think he was ahead of Tyron Smith and my boy Quentin Nelson. Like, what the hell? He doesn't play.
Nelson's a guard, so
it doesn't matter. This dude don't play. He don't play.
Injury is not factored into that. Play. I know this because whoever player always have 99 injuries.
Whoever sets the damn ratings, what are you basing that on? What are you basing? He hasn't played in 2 fucking years. He
is that good when he plays, though.
When he plays, when does he play? And if your sample size is 2 games, if your sample size is 2 games, and I'm pretty sure, if I could pick 2 games where Jimmy G played, there are probably times where he's probably a 99 too. You know, like. But what's the total value of him as a player? Like when he actually played, if you take all the games that he's played, because it ain't much. I mean, I think there should be a baseline.
12 games 2 years ago.
2 years ago. 2 years ago.
We're not counting last year. So the year before last year, 12 games, and he was. I mean, you can argue that wasn't enough, but he was an All-Pro in those 12 games.
How many games he played last year?
Well, 1 game last year.
Okay. How many?
But he played at least 12 every other year.
So where is he starting at this year? Where is he starting at this year? On injured reserve.
All right. Well, to bring that up, though, I think the one big regret that probably every Packers fan and secretly probably the whole organization right now is they're regretting taking a D2 wide receiver over George Pickens. I feel like that felt like a mistake at the time.
The boy from
Georgia, who's
State. I'm talking about
they took Christian Watson
over Pickens. Yeah, that was
who's been injured the entire offseason so far.
Well, I mean,
he wasn't even in that conversation with dudes.
If you ask me, I'm not an expert. I'm just saying when I looked at Trey Burke in person in Arkansas, and when I looked at his like I did a scouting report on him, I was like, dang, he's got Devontae Adams type skill set. Would have been a good match. Just saying. Was possible if they had tried, but they didn't. They didn't because that's what the Packers do. They don't do the things that other teams do to get better. Yeah, they just do things their way. They don't take chances. They don't trade up. They don't trade down. They don't really hit free agency hard. You know, they just have this like homegrown approach. So I mean, it is what it is, but
this is also a team that, at least in the current era with this coaching staff, they've won more games than like the metrics say they have every year.
Yeah,
and that's probably a good sign. That A, it's a sign that they have Aaron Rodgers, and B, it's a sign that they have a better coaching staff than they did with Mike McCarthy. At the same time, though, I don't think this is 4th straight year of 13 wins.
It's also a sign that they've played in a division with the Bears and the Lions. Yeah. And the up and down Jekyll and Hyde fucking Vikings. Like they've always had it easy in their division for like the last like 6-7 years. Like and then when they venture out and they gotta play a real team in the playoffs, they get beat, and then everybody's like, Aaron Rodgers is a fraud. Like, yeah, well, I mean, he's gotta wait 3-4 months before he plays a real team, and that's what happens. But Vikings.
So wait, are you with me on the under?
On the under, yeah. I can't wait to fade Aaron Rodgers. Just out of spite. I hope he gets a wild card and he has to come to San Francisco and play. I would love it.
All right, I like it.
Vikings, new coach Kevin O'Connell. O'Connell comes from the McVay tree, which features Green Bay coach Matt LaFleur, Cincy coach Zach Taylor, and Chargers coach Brandon Staley.
Woo!
So no, there's clearly a reason to be optimistic. However, he inherits Kirk Cousins, who's still getting COVID for some reason.
He's not vaccinated. Man.
Yeah, I know, but Jesus, like I know people that's not vaccinated, they're not getting it on a weekly basis. And then
he just thinks God is going to protect him wherever he goes. He's got that crazy pastor father. So
I don't even think that's a good excuse because
it's not a good excuse.
God forsakes him every Monday night, so he should know that there are some things that he's got to do on his own at some point. So, I mean, I literally put on my notes: need Cousins not to lose games. That's it. The team was 2-5 in games decided by less than 4 points. That is not how you cut it. So if they're 8-9, and in 7 of those games they were 2-5, like that's a playoff swing. Like they essentially would have been a playoff team if they'd even won 3 more games in those close games. And a lot of that has to do with their offense not executing. There is rumors. A little bit of smoke from folks on Twitter, the PFF people and things like that, Pro Football Talk, Pro Football Talk, that this might be Thielen's last hurrah if he doesn't tighten up, which I don't believe that, but I don't believe it, one, because if O'Connell really comes from the McVay tree, these dudes gonna eat. they're gonna get a lot more space to operate in. I just think he just needs to get healthy. Like I think that's one of the things about a lot of these guys. They just don't allow themselves to get healthy, and I think that really hurt them last year. His injury is typically, I think, his ankle. So I mean, he's a guy who's typically dependent on cutting and shifting and things like that. So if you got a cranky ankle, it's going to make it a little difficult for you. But Jefferson should be fine. Dalvin Cook, again, if the guy's from the McVay tree, I'm optimistic. Offense ain't going to be a problem as long as Kirk Cousins just doesn't trick it up.
Yeah, to your point about Thielen, those first 11 games when he was healthy, if you prorate those out to a full 17-game season, it would have been 97 receptions, 1,060 yards, and 15 touchdowns. So, I mean, listen, are his best days behind him? Yeah, he's a white dude in his 30s. He's not going to be as spry. But the attention's on Justin Jefferson. Adam Thielen can still be a very good number 2 wide receiver. I think Dalvin Cook is a guy where I think in fantasy, a weird number of people are sleeping on him considering how talented he is. Ed Donatel is the new defensive coordinator. They're switching from a 4-3 to a 3-4, but I don't, you're going to see a lot of too high safeties. He's a Fangio guy. That's where he was last year in Denver. So I think that defense is still, I mean, I guess last year, part of the reason that Zimmer's gone is because that defense fell off. But if the old guys, if Patrick Peterson, Harrison Smith, if those guys can come through, I think that defense can be solid. It really comes down to Kirk. Does he execute when he needs to? Because, like you said, I think Justin Jefferson's set up for potentially an insane season. Because I think he's more talented than Cooper Kupp, and now you're putting him in the same role. He could go off. So I'm excited about what this offense can do. I think if Cousins plays well in the big moments, because that's all it is. It's not like he's not usually terrible. He's not usually great. He just kind of is that like 14th best quarterback in the NFL every year. But if things break right in the key moments, they can take this division. Because I think Green Bay takes a step back this year, at least as far as wins and losses goes. So I think there's a chance, but it's hard to feel confident because it's Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, I will say this though about the Cooper Kupp thing. He's by far one of the smartest receivers I've ever heard talk. I think that's probably his greatest asset. It's not his talent, it's his mind. I mean, he's definitely talented, but just like the way he broke down the one time he was talking to the lady, I forgot what she asked him, but he was talking about like how he saw it was a fire zone and he did this, and this, and this. I'm like, bro, right. You the quarterback. You the quarterback. And if you got a receiver that smart, man, that knows how to operate within space and you're giving them like option routes and things like that, you ain't got to worry about much. Like you just know he's going to do the right thing. I don't think Jefferson's not smart either. Jefferson's definitely up there. So
your point here is that Kupp is like as smart as Tom.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do defensively. I will not hear any slander on my boy Fangio. I think he plays a great bend but don't break type scheme. And as long as they've got edge rushers, or as long as they can develop or generate pressure in that defensive scheme, you're going to be fine. He doesn't like to blitz a lot. I don't know if this guy will throw wrinkles or switch it up, but Vic typically likes to sit back and bring 4 to 5 guys with pressure, and if he can do that.
Just to be clear here, Big Fangio is not a defensive coordinator, but it's Ed Donatel who was.
Not Vic.
Everyone to be clear, there's no confusion there,
I just wanted to shout out my boy Vic.
Fangio's great.
I felt bad when he left. I didn't want him to leave. I actually lobbied for him to be our coach, which probably wouldn't have worked out either. But either way, Vic Fangio is a good guy.
Yeah, Daniel Hunter, their best pass rusher, missed the last 10 games last season. So I think getting him back, getting him healthy, that's a big difference on that defense.
Over under 8.5.
That's a definite over for me. As much as I just talked about how you can't ever feel confident in Kirk Cousins, I believe enough in what this offensive system is going to do. And I think as much as I respect Mike Zimmer as a defensive coach, I think he was always holding back that offense a little bit, even accounting for Kirk Cousins. So I like the over. I also think they have a pretty easy schedule overall. So
let me see. Let me check their schedule real quick. What you said, 8.5? Let's see. Oh, they only have one Monday night game, so yeah, they're good.
There you go. I love some of their other games. Saturday night game. Oh, who is it against? It's against.
They got Monday night. They got a London game.
That's actually and that's a win because that London game is against the Saints. That would have been at New Orleans. I'm not betting on Kirk Cousins in New Orleans.
Yeah.
Kirk Cousins in England? Sure.
And it's wild. Like out of their 17 games, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of them are at the 1 o'clock spot. So even the league knows that they can't put Kurt in prime time. So yeah, I'll take the over. I'll take the over there. So that has been the AFC NFC North. I'll talk to him. We'll figure out what we're gonna do on Sunday morning, but I'll try to advertise a little bit better. Apologize because I think we were on the separate divisions, or I was on the wrong division, then I had the time wrong. But
my internet didn't work yesterday because all the students came back to Tucson. So
yeah, so we will have everything straight for Sunday. In the meantime, anybody that you saw week 1 preseason that stood out to you? Anything?
I honestly, I barely pay attention. Everyone overreacts. Like last year, it was like, are we sure Jamar Chase is good because he dropped 2 passes?
Let's not bring up Jamar Chase.
Stick to your unless something real. Daniel Jones' first preseason game, he was like 11 of 12. The only thing that stopped him in that game was lightning. So listen, stick to your priors. Don't overreact to especially week 1 of the preseason. If the third string guy has a Victor Cruz 3 touchdown game, hey, that's exciting. Maybe that guy will make the team. Maybe he turns out to be an okay player. But in general, just don't overreact. Just hope your team gets out healthy. That's all that matters.
Yeah, I don't have anybody in particular. I did watch a lot of it just because, I mean, for me, I need preseason because I need to get back into the mindset. Like I've been looking at a lot of college stuff, and then NFL comes up, and you just kind of have to oversaturate yourself with football because that's what it's going to be like for the next 5-6 months. But I was laughing at the Malik Willis stuff because Vrabel shut that down immediately. And then also laughing at the fact that the Ravens still continue to play so hard in preseason. That
is the one thing that I actually am paying attention to. I'm will someone finally beat the Ravens in the preseason?
Is it up to 20, 21 games now?
I think it's 21.
Yeah, that's incredible. Incredible. Well, all right, we will see you guys on Sunday. Thanks again, Joe. I'm waiting on you to change your handle to Joe the Brain Matz. And then at Staley and tell him that he needs to understand football better. No,
stay the course because they're winning.
They're not winning. No. I guess we're gonna be doing AFC West. We can get this out of the way real quick. All right, man. I'll see you on Sunday.
All right, have a good one.